Ladies, let me tell you something that might sting for just a second. Sometimes the reason you're drained in relationships isn't because men are complicated. It's because you're giving away pieces of yourself you should have never put on the table in the first place. Love should lift you, not strip you. So today, I'm going to give you 5 things you should never do for a man, because the moment you stop doing these, you stop losing yourself and you start gaining the respect and love you actually deserve. You know what happens far too often? Someone falls in love and slowly, without even realizing it, they start putting pieces of themselves on the shelf. Their hobbies, their passions, the quirks that made them unique, gone. They think, well, maybe if I tone this down, he'll love me more. Maybe if I stop doing that, he'll stay. Maybe if I mold myself into exactly what he wants, then he won't leave. But here's the truth. The second you abandon your own identity to please a man, you've already set the relationship on shaky ground. Because love that requires you to erase yourself isn't love. It's control, it's fear, and it's a slow death to your confidence. When you stop showing up as you, when you trade your authenticity for his comfort, you're teaching him a dangerous lesson that his version of you matters more than your real one. And that's not how respect is built. That's not how love grows. The kind of man worth keeping doesn't want a puppet. He wants a partner. Someone who has her own light, her own voice, her own identity that doesn't get lost in his shadow. Think about this. The things that made him attracted to you in the first place, your energy, your confidence, your drive, the way you lit up when you talked about what mattered to you, those weren't accidents. They weren't decorations. That was you. And the worst thing you can do is smother that spark just to make yourself easier to handle. Because the second you dim your light, 2 things happen. 1, you stop recognizing yourself in the mirror, and 2, he stops recognizing the woman he first fell for. I've seen it time and time again. A woman gives up her passions, thinking it's an act of love. She says, I'll stop going to that class I love because he doesn't like it. I won't spend time with those friends because he doesn't get along with them. I won't chase that career goal because it makes him insecure. And slowly, she shrinks. Her laughter fades, her independence fades, and in its place is someone desperate to keep the relationship alive, even if it means burying her own happiness. But here's the twist. The very thing she gave up herself to keep, she ends up losing anyway, because a man who asks you to erase yourself is never going to value what's left of you. You have to remember this. Your identity is not a bargaining chip. Your individuality is not negotiable. The right man will celebrate the fact that you have your own life, your own passions, your own voice. He'll admire the woman who doesn't just orbit around him, but walks next to him, strong and whole. The wrong man will see your strength and try to chip away at it because he's threatened by it. But that has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with his insecurity. And if you trade your identity for his comfort, you don't save the relationship. You just sacrifice yourself for nothing. So stop giving away the very thing that makes you powerful. Stop apologizing for being you. If he truly loves you, he'll want all of you, not a version edited and cropped down to fit his expectations. You never abandon your identity for a man, because the moment you do, you're not in a partnership anymore. You're in a performance. And performances don't last. Disrespect never starts loud. It's almost never the big, obvious slap in the face at the beginning. It's subtle. It's in the little comments brushed off as jokes, the delayed responses that start to feel intentional, the way he interrupts you or dismisses your thoughts like they don't carry any weight. And here's the tricky part. You tell yourself it's not that serious. You excuse it. You think, he's tired, he's stressed, maybe I'm being too sensitive. But the moment you begin making excuses for disrespect, you're sending a silent signal that this kind of treatment is acceptable. And once that door is cracked open, it never stops at just one step through. It grows, it stretches, it multiplies. The danger with disrespect is that it normalizes itself. One day it's him rolling his eyes at something you say. The next, it's him ignoring your boundaries because he thinks he can. Then suddenly, you're 2 years in, wondering why you feel invisible, unheard, and unworthy. And the truth is, it didn't just happen overnight. It started small, and every time you let it slide, it planted another seed. That's how disrespect works. It doesn't just show up and demand space. It sneaks in and takes it while you're busy convincing yourself you can handle it. Here's the thing: respect is the foundation of love. Without it, everything else is fake. You can have chemistry, you can have attraction, you can have fun nights out, but if he doesn't respect you, your time, your feelings, your boundaries, none of it means anything. And too many people confuse attention with respect. Just because someone gives you attention doesn't mean they honor you. There's a difference between someone wanting you and someone valuing you. And this is where I see so many women trapped, trying to earn respect instead of expecting it, trying to prove they're worthy of it instead of realizing it should have been there from the start. Respect isn't a reward he gives you for good behavior. It's the minimum requirement for him to even be in your life. The moment you have to fight for it, the moment you have to beg for it, you've already lost more than the relationship. You've lost pieces of your own self-worth. I want you to imagine this: every time you let a disrespectful comment slide, you're handing him a note that says, "This is okay." Every time you swallow your feelings because you don't want to cause drama, you're telling him, "My comfort matters less than yours." And if that continues, you'll find yourself in a relationship where you're walking on eggshells while he's walking all over you. That is not love. That is not partnership. That is survival, and you weren't made to just survive in love. You were made to thrive in it. Now, does that mean you cut off anyone who makes a mistake? No. Disrespect isn't about imperfection, it's about patterns. Everyone messes up, everyone says things they regret, but a man who respects you owns it. He apologizes, he makes a change, he learns. A man who doesn't respect you will dismiss your pain, flip it back on you, or laugh it off. And that's when you know it's not a slip up, it's who he is. You don't have to stay where respect is missing. You don't have to keep lowering the bar because you're scared he won't reach for it. The right man won't even let you touch that bar because he'll raise it higher himself. Disrespect is the first sign that someone doesn't deserve access to your heart, your energy, or your future. And if you allow it to stay, you're not just tolerating him, you're betraying yourself. So never tolerate disrespect, because the moment you do, you teach him exactly how low he's allowed to go. One of the easiest traps to fall into is believing that if you just give enough, if you love harder, if you show up more, somehow he'll recognize your worth and finally give back what you've been waiting for. It feels noble, it feels loyal, and it feels like the right thing to do. Because isn't love about sacrifice? Isn't love about pouring into the other person? But here's the reality you can't ignore. When you're the only one pouring, eventually you run dry. Love should be a balance of give and take, not an endless cycle of you giving and him taking. When you give in a relationship, you train your heart to accept crumbs while you serve a feast. You cook meals, you rearrange your schedule, you compromise your needs, you show up for his dreams while yours collect dust. And at first you may not notice. You tell yourself, this is love, this is how I prove I care. But after a while it starts to feel heavy. You start to realize the phone only rings when he needs something, the effort only flows when it's convenient for him, and the appreciation rarely comes, if ever. What's left is a relationship that looks more like a transaction than a partnership. And the dangerous part about giving is that it can make you blind to how little you're actually receiving. You convince yourself that his small gestures are enough because you've already invested so much. It's like someone pouring a few drops of water into your glass while you've been filling theirs with buckets. You cling to those drops as if they mean everything because you don't want to admit the truth. You're being drained. And the longer you stay in that cycle, the harder it is to see that this isn't love, it's imbalance. Real love doesn't require you to exhaust yourself. It doesn't require you to prove your worth through constant sacrifice. In fact, the right man doesn't want you to lose yourself in the process of loving him. He wants to meet you in the middle. He wants to give as much as he gets. That's what makes it a relationship instead of a responsibility. When you're carrying the whole weight of it, when you're constantly the one fixing, planning, supporting, encouraging, without it ever being returned, you're not in love, you're in service. And service without reciprocity leads to resentment. Think about how many women stay stuck in this exact pattern. They tell themselves, if I just do a little more, maybe he'll change. If I just keep proving how much I care, maybe he'll finally step up. But here's the hard truth. If he wanted to step up, he already would have. If he wanted to match your energy, he already would be. You can't give a man character, you can't give him effort, you can't give him the willingness to show up. Those are choices he has to make on his own. And the longer you give, the longer you protect him from having to make those choices. You deserve someone who notices when your cup is empty and fills it without being asked. You deserve someone who shows up not because you begged, but because they want to. Love should never feel one-sided, and it should never feel like you're trying to earn it through effort alone. Because the truth is, the more you give to the wrong man, the less room you leave for the right one to show up. So never give when it's not being reciprocated, because the right relationship doesn't drain you, it sustains you. Boundaries are one of the most misunderstood parts of a relationship because so many people confuse them with walls. They think if you set boundaries, you're being cold, you're being distant, or you're shutting someone out. But the truth is, boundaries aren't about keeping people away. They're about protecting what matters to you. They're not walls, they're doors with locks. And you get to decide who has the key, how far they can come in, and what rooms stay private. When you let a man cross those boundaries just because you're afraid he might leave, you're not showing love, you're showing that you value his comfort more than your own peace. The dangerous part is that compromising your boundaries doesn't always feel wrong in the moment. Sometimes it feels like you're just being flexible, just being understanding, just being a good partner. Maybe he wants you to cancel plans with your friends, and you do it because you don't want to upset him. Maybe he pushes you into conversations you're not ready for, and you go along because you don't want to seem difficult. Maybe he ignores your no, and instead of holding firm, you soften it into a maybe. And at first, you convince yourself that these are small sacrifices, harmless adjustments. But every time you do that, you're chipping away at the foundation of self-respect that holds you up. Boundaries are how you teach someone how to treat you. They are the lines that say, this is who I am, and this is what I will and won't accept. Without them, you become a version of yourself that's constantly bending, constantly stretching, constantly making room for someone else while leaving no room for your own needs. And here's the truth. No healthy man respects someone who abandons themselves to keep him happy. He may enjoy the control, he may enjoy the power, but deep down, respect is lost the moment he realizes he can walk over you without consequence. The kind of love you deserve isn't one that tests your limits, it's one that honors them. The right man won't just accept your boundaries, he'll appreciate them. He'll see them as a sign that you know your worth, that you respect yourself, and that you're strong enough to protect your own peace. The wrong man will push against them, complain about them, and try to make you feel guilty for having them. And that's how you know who really belongs in your life. Compromising your boundaries may keep someone around temporarily, but it guarantees long-term pain. Because eventually, you wake up and realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You've said yes to too many things you never wanted, and no to too many things you deeply needed. That kind of sacrifice doesn't create closeness. It creates resentment. And resentment, once it sets in, is almost impossible to erase. You need to understand this clearly. Boundaries are not punishments. They're not about shutting a man out or pushing him away. They're about creating the kind of space where love can actually breathe. Without them, what you're left with isn't love. It's control, it's fear, it's dependency. And you weren't made to live trapped in that. So don't compromise your boundaries just to keep someone close. Because the truth is, if he's the right one, you'll never have to. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships is confusing comfort with love. Just because you've gotten used to someone, just because you know their habits, their routines, their moods, doesn't mean they're the person you're meant to build a future with. Familiarity can feel safe, but safe doesn't always mean healthy. Sometimes you're not in love, you're just stuck in a cycle that feels too heavy to break. And when you're in a relationship where there's no growth, where the two of you are standing still or worse, moving backward, it doesn't matter how much history you share. History without progress isn't love, it's stagnation. Think about it, love is supposed to evolve you. It's supposed to challenge you, inspire you, stretch you, and make you better. Not just better as a couple, but better as an individual too. The right man doesn't keep you small, he pushes you to expand. He wants to see you hit your goals. He wants to see you shine in your own lane. He wants to see you becoming the best version of yourself. And he's right there putting in the same work for himself. That's growth. But when you're with someone who doesn't want to change, who refuses to face his flaws, who repeats the same toxic patterns and calls it just the way I am, you're not growing, you're decaying. And the scary thing about staying in a place with no growth is how slowly it eats away at you. It's not dramatic at first. It's not some big explosion. It's the quiet settling of, this is just how it is. You stop expecting better. You stop pushing for more. You stop dreaming bigger because every time you do, you're reminded that he's not on the same page. And so, piece by piece, you trade your growth for stability. But stability without growth isn't really stable. It's fragile. Because the moment life tests that relationship, and it cracks under the weight of everything you both avoided. The truth is, love should never feel like standing still. It should never feel like repeating the same argument every month without change. It should never feel like being stuck in the same fight, the same excuse, the same apology that doesn't lead to action. That's not love. That's a loop. And loops don't build futures, they just waste time. You deserve a relationship where both people are invested in becoming better communicators, better partners, better humans. Where accountability is welcomed, not avoided. Where you can look back after a year together and say, we're not the same people we were, and that's a good thing. If you can't say that, if all you see is a pattern that never changes, then what you're in isn't love, it's fear. Fear of starting over, fear of being alone, fear of facing the truth that maybe this isn't the person you were meant to grow with. But let me tell you this, choosing growth, even if it means walking away, will always serve you more than staying somewhere that keeps you small. Because the right man won't let you shrink. He won't keep you trapped in the same place, repeating the same pain. He'll stand beside you, and together you'll build something that actually moves forward. So never stay where there's no growth, because love that doesn't grow you will eventually destroy you. One of the clearest signs that something is broken in a relationship is when you feel like you have to beg. Beg for his time, beg for his attention, beg for his love. And here's the hard truth, the second you're in a position where you're chasing what should be freely given, you've already lowered yourself into a place you don't belong. Because love, real love, doesn't require you to plead for the basics. It doesn't ask you to convince someone to see your worth. It doesn't make you fight to prove you're worthy of their commitment. When you beg for love, what you're really doing is trying to fill the gap that his lack of effort has created. You text first every time. You rearrange your schedule to fit his, even when he doesn't do the same. You try to remind him of your value through actions, through patience, through sacrifice, but no matter how much you give, it never feels like enough. That's because you're pouring into someone who has decided they don't need to pour into you. And the more you try to force it, the more empty you become. Attention is the same way. If you have to fight for his eyes to be on you, if you feel invisible unless you're bending over backwards, then you're not in love. You're in competition, and the competition is between your effort and his indifference. That is a race you will never win, because the truth is, love that has to be chased is never love that lasts. The right man won't make you beg for his attention. He'll give it because he values your presence. He'll show up because he wants to, not because you had to remind him. And let's talk about commitment. Too many people waste years trying to convince someone to commit. They drop hints, they have repeated conversations, they wait and wait, hoping that one day he'll wake up and finally decide. But here's what you need to know: commitment is not something you can drag out of a man. If he wants it, he'll offer it. If he's ready, he'll move forward without you pushing him. If he doesn't, no amount of begging, no amount of proving, no amount of patience will change his mind. Begging for commitment only delays the inevitable. It keeps you tied to someone who already showed you they don't want to give you what you deserve. You have to realize that begging strips away your dignity. It shifts the power in the relationship. It makes you settle for the bare minimum while convincing yourself it's enough. And that's dangerous, because once you start believing you have to earn the basics, love, attention, commitment, you forget that those things are not luxuries, they're standards. The right man will never let you beg. He'll never make you question your worth. He'll never dangle his love like a prize, and he'll never withhold commitment as a way to keep control. He'll give those things freely, because he knows that's what partnership is built on. You don't have to prove yourself to the right person. You just have to show up as you, and that will always be enough. So never beg for love, attention, or commitment, because the moment you do, you've already accepted less than you deserve.